In recent months, processes have begun unfolding in the technology industry that until recently seemed like the plot of a science fiction story, but today are being discussed more and more frequently in reports from the world's leading analytical centers and on the pages of major international publications. The topic is that Japan is effectively launching a large-scale transformation of its labor market by gradually replacing human workers with incredibly lifelike next-generation humanoid robots. While such projects were once viewed as university laboratory experiments or exhibition demonstrations, they have now evolved into a systematic national program supported by investments, long-term strategy, and concrete deployments throughout the real economy. According to sources close to the Japanese government, the country is facing one of the most severe demographic challenges in the world. The population is aging rapidly, the number of working-age citizens continues to decline, and entire industries are already experiencing acute labor shortages. It is at this point that the solution Tokyo describes as not an alternative, but an inevitability emerges. The large-scale deployment of humanoid robots capable of performing human jobs with virtually no loss of efficiency. However, the key difference between this stage and everything that came before is that these new Japanese robots are no longer simply mechanical machines with a limited range of actions. They are systems powered by advanced artificial intelligence that are capable of learning, adapting, and, most importantly, imitating human behavior at a level that until recently was considered unattainable. According to industry insiders, this marks the transition from tool robots to replacement robots. At closed demonstrations described by journalists who attended these showcases, humanoids have been displayed that are capable not only of performing physical work, but also of interacting with people on an emotional level. They recognize facial expressions, analyze tone of voice, adjust to the mood of the person they are speaking with, and can maintain conversations that outwardly are almost indistinguishable from interactions with another human being. Some experts are already referring to this as the threshold of indistinguishability, where an ordinary person without special training can no longer determine whether they are interacting with a human or a machine. Particular attention is being devoted to the appearance of these robots. Japanese engineers have long been leaders in the development of hyper-realistic androids, and they are now taking that expertise to an entirely new level. Synthetic materials that imitate human skin are being used, complete with microstructures that closely resemble real skin. Facial micro-movement systems are being developed to reproduce expressions with remarkable precision. Tiny delays, subtle imperfections, and natural variations are intentionally incorporated to make the robot's behavior appear more lifelike and less predictable. But the most widely discussed area of development is the integration of so-called artificial emotions. It is important to understand that this does not refer to genuine human feelings. Instead, modern AI models are capable of generating sophisticated behavioral patterns that appear to be emotions. A robot can display joy, surprise, sympathy, or irritation, doing so not randomly, but based on its analysis of the situation and its previous interactions. According to analysts, this capability will become the decisive factor enabling the widespread adoption of such systems in fields where replacing humans was previously considered impossible. The primary targets include customer service, elderly care, education, and even certain forms of office work. Japan is already testing scenarios in which humanoid robots work in hotels, clinics, retail stores, and at the reception desks of major corporations. Insiders from leading technology companies claim that the first commercial batches of these robots have already entered limited real-world use, although they are still officially presented as pilot programs. However, the scale of investment and the pace of technological progress suggest that the transition may occur far more rapidly than most experts currently expect. Within Japan itself, however, public opinion on these developments is far from unanimous. On one hand, there is broad recognition that without automation, the country's economy could face serious challenges. On the other, questions are increasingly being raised about where the line should be drawn between convenience and the replacement of human workers. Some analysts warn that if the current pace of deployment continues, the labor market could undergo a radical transformation within just a few years. particular attention is being paid to how these robots will be integrated into everyday life. Unlike Western approaches, which tend to emphasize functionality, Japan's strategy focuses on creating machines that are as socially compatible as possible. The goal is for robots not merely to perform tasks, but to become part of the surrounding environment without making people feel uncomfortable. That is why so much effort is being devoted to their appearance, behavior, and even their individual personalities. According to sources, new models are currently under development that will be capable of living alongside people, assisting with household chores, accompanying elderly individuals, and even serving as companions. This direction has already sparked intense debate among psychologists and sociologists because it concerns not merely technological innovation, but the potential transformation of the very nature of human relationships. Meanwhile, Japan's major technology corporations are accelerating development efforts. Competition between them is intensifying, with every company striving to introduce the solution that will become the industry's benchmark. At the same time, the government is providing substantial support through funding programs, tax incentives, and the creation of dedicated infrastructure for testing emerging technologies. Against this backdrop, predictions are becoming increasingly common that Japan could become the first country to deploy humanoid robots on a truly large scale. Some experts compare the current moment to the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, when machines first began replacing manual labor. This time, however, the transformation is expected to be far more profound, involving not only physical work, but also portions of intellectual and social activity. It is important to note, however, that despite the impressive demonstrations and ambitious announcements, the technology is still in a developmental stage. Significant challenges remain in terms of cost, reliability, energy consumption, and safety. In addition, the question of regulation remains unresolved. Specifically, how governments will oversee the use of these systems and what limitations may ultimately be imposed. Nevertheless, the overall trend has become unmistakable. Japan is investing in a future where the boundary between humans and machines becomes increasingly difficult to distinguish. If the current pace continues, the coming years may witness humanoid robots evolving from rare technological curiosities into an ordinary part of everyday life. And the central question now being discussed not only in Japan but around the world is no longer whether this transformation will happen, but how quickly it will occur and whether society is truly prepared for such profound changes. Because once technology reaches a level at which it can no longer be distinguished from a human being, it ceases to be merely a tool and begins to reshape the very structure of society. Judging by the signals now emerging from Japan, that process has already begun, and it is precisely at this point that new and far more alarming signals begin to emerge. Signals that are now being discussed not only within technology circles, but also at the level of national strategies and international policy think tanks. According to several sources close to the industry, Japan is no longer testing individual humanoid robots, but entire systems in which dozens or even hundreds of these machines operate in synchronization as a single workforce managed by a centralized artificial intelligence. This represents a shift from replacing individual employees to replacing entire work teams. Within these systems, each robot is assigned its own role, yet all of them are connected through a shared digital network that continuously optimizes their actions. If one robot encounters a problem or makes an error, the system instantly redistributes tasks among the others. When a new type of task appears, the algorithms analyze it and train every participant in the network almost in real time. This is no longer simply automation, it is the creation of an entirely new form of artificial workforce. Industry insiders claim that such systems are already being tested at major logistics hubs and manufacturing facilities. In some cases, these involve factories where the share of human labor has been reduced to a minimum over the past several months. Humans remain only as supervisors, engineers, and quality control specialists, while humanoid robots perform nearly all operational work. Even more attention has been drawn by reports that similar systems are now appearing in the service sector. According to investigative journalists, there are already locations in several Japanese cities where most of the staff consists of human-like robots. They greet visitors, provide assistance, take orders, help with navigation, and even engage in casual conversation. According to eyewitnesses, distinguishing them from humans is becoming increasingly difficult, especially in ordinary everyday environments. Another particularly intriguing aspect is how these robots learn. Unlike previous generations, which required lengthy programming, the new models rely on what is known as learning by observation. They analyze human actions, imitate movements, communication styles, and behavioral patterns, gradually developing their own behavioral models. This makes the scaling process almost exponential. The more robots are deployed, the faster the entire system evolves. Against this backdrop, forecasts that until recently were considered too radical are now being discussed seriously. Some analysts believe that within the next decade, Japan could become the first country in the world where a significant share of routine occupations is fully automated through humanoid systems. This is no longer viewed as a speculative hypothesis, but as a scenario being actively evaluated within government planning. At the same time, increasing attention is being paid to society's ability to adapt to these changes. If robots become indistinguishable from humans not only in appearance but also in behavior, a new issue emerges: trust. How can people know who or what they are interacting with? Should such machines be legally required to identify themselves? Or, on the contrary, is their purpose to blend completely into human society? Some experts warn that this could become the true turning point. Once technology ceases to be obvious, it begins to influence society in much deeper and more subtle ways. Whereas automation was once perceived as something external, factory machinery, industrial robots, or computer algorithms, it is now literally entering human social space. Against this background, Japan's strategy appears particularly ambitious. The country is not simply investing in technological development, but in creating an entirely new model of coexistence between humans and machines. Judging by the current pace of progress, this experiment has already moved beyond laboratory environments and has begun shaping reality itself. And perhaps the most important point is that all of this is happening not in some distant future, but right now. While most countries are still debating the risks and opportunities, Japan is already testing, deploying, and scaling these technologies. And that is precisely why a growing number of experts are beginning to say that we are standing on the threshold of an era in which the question, "Can robots replace humans?" is finally giving way to a different one. How far will this process go? And where will it stop, if it stops at all?